and welcome back to Seeds and an Apple. If this is your first time, gusto ko magpasalamat sa inyo for being here. Ako po si Apple, isa akong mental health professional, so akong therapist dito sa US. Pero ito pong mga videos na ito specifically para sa aking mga kababayang Pilipino at sana ho makatulong po ito sa inyo. Today, ang tatalakayin ho natin tungkol sa grief. Marami ho sa atin ang naapektuhan nito, lalo na ngayong pandemya. Marami nawalan ng trabaho, marami nawalan ng financial security, may mga nawalan ng mga relationships, nawalan yung iba, at marami na nawalan ng mahal sa buhay. At halos lahat tayo nawalan ng sense of normalcy, ika nga. Lahat, kumbaga, yung mga kinagisnan natin before ay kumbaga nawala lahat yon. Hence, andyan yung grieving. Andyan yung kumbaga pagluluksa. Ang pagluluksa, hindi lamang ho ito pagluluksa sa kung nawalan tayo ng mahal sa buhay, kundi kagaya ng mga nabanggit ko kanina. Pwede tayong magluksa sa mga bagay-bagay na nawawala sa atin. A few weeks ago, or actually just a week ago, isa sa mga very close family friends namin, yung anak nila nawala or died due to COVID. And needless to say, that has been a very trying and painful experience for this family, and I can definitely feel their pain. It's very different kapag sa'yo nangyayari kasi very personal. This has been probably the closest to home for us na meron kaming kakilala that we personally know na nawala through COVID. And again, yun nga, napakahirap. And I can only imagine the pain and just the distress and all sorts of emotions that this family is going through. So grieving it's a part of it's a part of us. It's a part of life, really. But it has a lot of mga strong emotions that comes with it. So it could be sadness, it could be anger, devastation, sometimes regret, So maraming samot-sari na mga emotions ang meron sa grieving. And grief, it's important for us to understand yung nature ng grief para matulungan tayo to cope. Madalas, diba, minsan naririnig natin na, ay, sige, mag-move on ka lang or move on. When really, in reality, that doesn't happen. Hindi nangyayari yung move on or moving on. Especially when this has to do with losing a loved one. You don't move on from them, or you don't move on from losing your loved one. And in fact, you instead cope. You learn to live without them. Na kumbaga, dahil nasanay ka na kasama natin sila sa buhay, so now we're going to be working on learning to live without the physical presence of our loved one with us. So it's not necessarily, again, it's not moving on, but learning to live without them and coping with the grief that comes from losing them. So what are some things that we can do so that we can grieve? Number one, kailangan po nating alalahanin na grieving, or the process of grieving, there is no right way of doing it or wrong way of doing it. It's a unique process. It's a unique experience for each one of us. Magkakaiba tayo ng ways kung paano tayo magluksa. So, hindi siya parang cookie cutter na para-pareho lahat. Hindi. So, it's unique. Understand that your way of grieving might be different from the way your mother grieves, or your father, or your friend, or anyone else. Understand that also grief, it's like a wave. Kumbaga yung pattern, parang wave siya. One moment you might feel sad, another you might feel regret for all the things that you would have wanted to do with that person na hindi na ngayon magagawa. And then another, you might feel anger. So there's that process sa grieving. It's very complex, kaya nga. So be forgiving, be extra kind to yourself in these trying times. Remember that, again, it's a unique experience na hindi pare-pareho or kapareho ng kung paano mag-grieve ang ibang tao. Give yourself permission to grieve. Number 1 din yan na alalahanin natin, or rather number 2. So una, be kind to yourself. Okay? Be very kind, be forgiving to yourself. And second is that to give yourself permission to grieve. A lot of times, pag nasa stage tayo ng nawalan tayo ng mahal sa buhay, tapos maraming samot-saring emotions, na mga intense emotions tayo na nararamdaman, ang usually na parang knee-jerk reaction na tinatawag, o yung parang automatic minsan na reaction natin ay wag masyado, dapat ganyan, wag akong ganyan, dapat masaya lang ako kasi ayaw ni kung sino man yung mahal natin sa buhay na nawala, ayaw niya na malungkot ako, dapat nakangiti lang ako, dapat ganito. So marami tayong mga rules na ini-impose sa sarili natin, and ang nangyayari tuloy, nasusuppress ngayon yung emotions mo, but later on, it's gonna come back and it's gonna haunt you. So mas mainam na ngayon pa lang, bigyan mo na ng permiso ang sarili mo na magluksa. Lalo na sa panahon natin ngayon sa pandemya, marami sa inyo, marami ang mga nawalan ng mahal sa buhay na hindi nila sila nakita dahil sa mga regulations that are imposed. Halimbawa, hindi na sila kailangan mabisita, ganyan, no? Or hindi man lang kayo nakapaglamay, hindi man lang, walang formal na burol. So, that adds more pain to the grieving process kasi hindi nagagawa yung mga nakagisnan na natin ng mga tradisyon. So, it makes it even more painful. And sometimes it makes it even more unbearable. For those of you who lost your loved ones, that you weren't able to mourn the way that you would have wanted. So, sa mga panahon po na yun, remember that, again, there are things that we have no control over, and accept na the times that we live in today is just different. Hindi kagaya ng times past. And so accepting that early on will help in the grieving process. Accepting that there are certain things or traditions that you're not going to be able to do anymore. But instead, in place of that, pwede naman na mayroong bagong traditions na pwede ninyong gawin. Halimbawa, some of you could have yung parang video call with families, and you can still do or pay tribute to your loved ones through maybe social media, using technology, using the means that we have these days to be able to still do your tribute or pay homage to the person that you lost. That way, sa pamamagitan nun, kumbaga, we can do that in place of those traditions that we would have done kung wala ang pandemya. Yan. And then, for the individual, create daily routine. Huwag mong hayaan na ang sarili mo ay mabaliwala. Kagaya ng kung ano yung mga routine mo before, do the same thing. If you have to get up in the morning at a certain time, and before na namatay yung loved one mo, at sa ngayon wala na siya, do the same thing. You create those routine. Try to eat regular meals, at regular times. If you have a family prayer, or you have some kind of tradition that you do as a family, do the same thing. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na dahil wala na yung mahal sa buhay ay hindi nyo na po pwedeng gawin yung mga traditions or mga kinagisnan ninyong routine noong nabubuhay pa siya. So like connecting, with family, connecting with friends. Maaring meron kang to-do list every day na ginagawa. So kahit na wala na yung mahal mo sa buhay, you can still do the same thing. If you write in your journal every day, you can still do the same thing. So, have all of those routine to still still be in place. And then, potentially, maybe set a time kung saan yun yung parang grieving time mo. Kung gusto mo ng time na ikaw lang, where you can feel your emotions, where you can feel, all of those, yung sadness na nararamdaman mo over the loss of your loved one, continue to do so. So you can have that. Maybe if you want it to be in the morning or in the evening, or just whatever works for you. And that's a time for you. Again, you're giving yourself the permission to grieve for your loved one. And you're acknowledging your emotions so that it's not going to be bottled up, or hindi siya sobrang suppressed lang, or kung parang tinatalikuran mo or pinawaksi mo lang siya, and then later on, it's gonna come back to you. So it's better for you to address and acknowledge those emotions now. So focus on your self-care is another one. Karamihan, kapag ka nawalan ng mahal sa buhay, isa sa mga mahirap, na kumbaga mahirap gawin yung taking care of ourselves. Kasi inaalala mo na lang paano na yung let's say, kung halimbawa ang nawala ay yung asawa niyo, aalalahanin mo lang yung anak mo, yung mga magulang, etc. But take care of yourself too. Don't forget self-care. Practice yung hygiene, still take a shower. Minsan yun ang nakakalimutan na dahil sa lungkot, sobrang lungkot. Ayaw nang kumain, ayaw, mag-shower, and ganyan. So, take care of yourself. Little things that you can do now to take care of your physical health. As much as possible, is also a time to maybe avoid or limit alcohol intake dahil hindi yan makakatulong sa inyo. Kung kailangan mong mag-journal, go ahead and do your journal. That might be a good therapeutic process for you. And one thing as well in taking care of yourself is to limit media exposure. So lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya, napakaraming mga iba't ibang news, iba't ibang balita na mga nakikita natin, social media, sa usual, telecast ng mga sa TV, ganyan, mga balita na naririnig natin. So, limit your intake of media. Kasi kadalasan sa media, they magnify a lot of things. Kung pinapalaki minsan yung mga bagay-bagay. So, try to maybe limit that, and that might help you to just maybe focus on the here and now instead of making you all worried sa kung ano yung nakikita mo sa media. If you need medical advice, definitely seek medical advice or mental health advice sa mga trusted professional. Napaka-importante ho niyan. Another thing na pwede ho natin gawin is yung i-check natin kung yung paano tayo mag-isip. Dito pumapasok yung mga tinatawag natin cognitive distortions. I have videos on that about cognitive distortions that you can also check out. So, check your thinking. Paano yung mga pag-iisip mo? Minsan, isa sa mga nangyayari, yun nga, kapag nawalan tayo ng mahal sa buhay, we tend to isolate. We tend to just be with ourselves and ayaw na natin nang makisalamuha sa ibang tao. And then, thing that goes on in our head, yung mga what if sana naging mas mabuti akong asawa, kaya what if sana dinalhan ko siya ng ganitong pagkain, sana nandun ako, sana I answered the phone when he called me, yung mga ganun. Pag patuloy na ganun yung mga pag-iisip natin, yung mga what if thinking, then we end up not only na lakas natin yung ating anxiety, mas nagkakaroon tayo ng mga thinkings of regret and self-loathing. Yung nagagalit ka na tuloy sa sarili mo, na pinipersonal mo na yung nangyari ay dahil kasalanan mo. And it's not going to help. It's not going to help you. So, importante na maging aware tayo sa kung ano yung mga iniisip natin. One way to maybe, again, to be aware of it or one of, parang therapeutic alternative for us will be writing in your journal. Isulat mo kung ano yung mga naiisip mo. Ganyan. You can also maybe ask yourself, like, how would I advise a friend in the same situation? Kung nasa ganitong sitwasyon yung kaibigan ko, paano kaya ako magbibigay ng advice sa kanila? Ano kayang sasabihin ko? Or the way that I'm thinking right now, for example, what would my loved one think, or what would my loved one say to me if he or she were here right now? Kung nandito siya, kausap ko siya, ano kayang sasabihin niya sa akin? Gugustuhin ba niya na ganito yung iniisip ko? Or maybe he or she will say this a different thing. So yes, those things that you could do. Again, check your thoughts and try to process those thoughts by writing in your journal, or maybe asking yourself questions of, what am I thinking? What am I telling myself? That's about to happen. How would I advise a friend? Or if my loved one were here, what would they tell me? What would they say about the situations? Yung mga ganun. It's going to be helpful as well for you to remind you na, yun nga, sa time na ito ng pandemya, may mga bagay, maraming bagay na wala tayong control. Itong pandemic na ito na nangyari sa atin, kumbaga, it almost came as a surprise. Sobrang daming mga sitwasyon o kaya mga decisions din that has been very difficult for a lot of us. And so remember that there are things beyond your control. Your loved one's health, the medical, kumbaga mga technology, ganyan sa medical health, na wala tayong control. Na kumbaga, bottom line is that it's not your fault kung nawala yung mahal mo sa buhay. It's not your fault. So yeah, so to check the way that we think. Another one is to reach out for support. So kung wala kayong suporta, isa ito sa mga sana magkaroon kayo ng suporta. Reach out to people that you trust, even if it's just one person that you trust, that you can talk to. So keep in touch with your support system. Kung meron kayong your family members, especially for those of you na your loved ones passed or died of COVID and nasa malayong lugar sila, wala kayo sa iisang lugar, halimbawa, it's important to reach out to your other family members. Maybe create, this is where you can create your own tradition of maybe at the end of the week, or at the end of the day, you'll have your kind of Zoom conference with your family and friends and talk about and celebrate, the life of your loved one. Pwede rin kayo magkaroon ng mga virtual appointments, potentially with your medical providers or with your mental health providers as a support for you. Arrange for maybe someone from, let's say you belong to a spiritual group or some kind of, like a support system, support group. Maybe have someone to check on you from time to time, or check on your loved one, other, family members from time to time. So halimbawa, malayo ka, let's say namatay yung nanay mo, and you're worried about your father, so maybe you can have someone near the area, check on your father from time to time. Again, to build that support system. Sometimes meron ding mga online groups, online support system, na lalo na sa social media, that maybe you can also join and find support from that. So it's really important. It's very, very critical at this time to really build your support system. Yeah. And like I mentioned earlier, may mga rituals, may mga traditions na because of the pandemic na hindi natin nagagawa. Lalo halimbawa yung burol o kaya pagkakaroon ng yung mga service, funeral service, ganyan, para sa mahal sa buhay. But you can be creative in doing your own rituals, your own traditions. Like I shared earlier, you could do some kind of Zoom meeting, Zoom calls with your family members, and you can have, like a tribute, maybe like a tribute weekend of some sort, where you all get together as a family, as friends, and talk about that loved one. Discuss yung buhay nila, things that you remember most about them. Maybe as a group, you could create a page for in remembrance or in memory of your loved one, where people can post their tribute for that loved one. Lalo na sa Facebook halimbawa, so you can create a page where in memory of your loved one. Everybody can maybe put pictures, or maybe share anecdotes and stories about your loved one. Pwede rin siguro na service, you can have some service projects and you're doing it on behalf of or in memory of your loved one. Halimbawa, punta kayo sa, let's say, sa home for the aged, or like what do you call this, caregiving facility, halimbawa, to give your support, or maybe donate some money in memory of your loved one, or donate your labor of hours or service hours in memory of your loved one. Or maybe you can create some arts, or maybe murals or paintings, again, in memory of your loved one. So there's so many creative ways that you can do para nang sa ganon, you can still memorialize that person, and you can still continue, to have, that person's legacy, kumbaga, yung kanilang memory, yung kanilang, yung mga things that you remember about them can still live on in you. For children, for example, if it's, yung namatayan ay yung mga anak, halimbawa, young children who lost a parent, it will be helpful din na magkaroon siguro ng parang journaling time, ganyan, or something that, they can write or draw things that reminds them of daddy or mommy or grandpa or grandma, kung sino man yung, yung nawala sa inyo. It will help the children also process yung kanilang emotions. They can even draw how they feel. They can draw mga memories nila, or they can write words, happy, good words, that remind them of that family member who passed away. You can have siguro mga shirts, print shirts that has maybe yung mga characteristics o kaya mga attributes ng family member ninyo. Halimbawa, say, kind, generous, fearless, yung mga ganun na mga words, and then, put it on a shirt or something, or some kind of maybe a frame, frame it. And that's to, again, memorialize that person, to remind you of the kindness of that person. Hence, they will live on in you. It's very difficult and painful. This, yung mawalan ng mahal sa buhay, lalo na sa time na ito. I think there's no word or words that could ever describe yung nararamdamang pain ng sino man na mawalan ng mahal sa buhay. But please know that you are not alone, and that itong time na kung saan nawala sa iyo ang isang tao that just means a lot to you. Remember that the grieving process or grief is a natural reaction or natural part ng buhay natin. It's natural for you to be sad. It's natural for you to be angry sometimes. It's natural for you to sometimes even feel regret. So acknowledge those emotions. Take time to acknowledge those emotions. Take time to process those emotions and give yourself the permission to grieve And that's just one of your first steps in the healing process. And however difficult it may seem for you at this time, however unbearable it may seem for you at this time, please know that healing will come. It will come. And I leave with you peace and love. And I hope that this video has been helpful for you, and you can share it as well with anyone who might benefit from it. Thank you for being here, and until next time.